However, a group of small boys in Pune, I refer to them as boys because they were all in the age group of 18 to 23, with the oldest probably being 27 or 28. Only one of them was married. All the others were still bachelors, either studying in colleges or doing some kind of small job, normal middle class, lower middle class boys. They were actually very influenced by the ideology of Savarkar. And they were disciples of Babarao Savarkar, who was Tatya Savarkar's brother. And they were extremely taken in by the idea of Akhand Bharat. However, what they thought was, till such time as even 1 inch of our territory is under colonial occupation, how can we say that we are independent? Until we are completely independent, how can we ask for an Akhand Bharat? Abhi to hamara Bharat hi azad nahi hua. So therefore they decided, sitting there one day, that in case the government of India decided that it did not want to take any action against the Portuguese government to throw them out, they said, we will do it ourselves. Now this formed one core group which participated in the uprising. They were all RSS Swayamsevaks, Swayamsevaks. And they, along with Babarao Bhide, who was then the Pracharak of that area, decided that they wanted to do something about this. I will now introduce another group which was part of the uprising. Now this group was called the Azad Gomantak Dal. Now the Azad Gomantak Dal was actually a shoot-off from the Goa Congress. Just like we had the Indian National Congress, and there were differences between Gandhiji and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, that Gandhiji wanted to follow only the path of Satyagraha, and Netaji wanted to take up arms. Like that, there was a division of thought in the Goa Congress. And this was particularly valid because Portuguese as an occupying force were much crueler than the British. I am not saying the British were good. I am not saying the French were here to do charity or help us develop the railways or roads or anything like that. They were here to exploit us. They carried out many cases of cruelty. However, there was a modicum of justice in them. I mean, after Jallianwala Bagh, after all, Brigadier Dyer was tried. And he was tried and convicted. So, such things, at least there was some element of justice in it. With the Portuguese, there was none. It was cruelty at its worst. A story is told about how the leader of one of the leaders of the Azad Gomantak Dal, you can say their chief Senapati, one Prabhakar Sinari, was 14. He was at college. He was at school. And Ramano Loyaji had come to Goa and he had made a speech there. So 14 and 12-year-old children had taken out a small morcha, just saying Inqilab Zindabad or Ramano Loya Zindabad. Now they were brutally attacked by Portuguese police. And they were beaten up with, not only with sticks, but they were beaten up with hippo leather belts. And seeing that, Prabhakar Sinari himself thought that these people are not going to go with Satyagraha. They are only going to go if they are forced to go. And therefore he decided to take up arms and joined the similar group of people as they proceeded forward. Incidentally, the first time Sinari was convicted and accused of being an ace terrorist plotting against the Portuguese government, he was only 17. So at that early age, he joined it. So there were a lot of young men who had done this. There was Mr. Vishwanath Lavande, he was an advocate. He had set up the Azad Gomantak Dal, which was an offshoot of the Goa Congress wanting to take up arms. And their standard procedure was that they took oath with a pistol in their hand and pledged that we will take up arms and stake our lives and continue to fight till such time as the Portuguese are driven out of the country. Now, this was the Azad Gomantak Dal. Now, they had, in order to raise funds, they had robbed a bank in Panjim. They had also robbed a government treasury, in which, during the process of which, one guard was killed, another was injured, and there were warrants against them. So, most of them had fled from there, and they had set up an Azad Gomantak Dal office in Belgaum. So, this was another group which was there. And the third group which participated in the uprising was the Communist Party of India. Now, this Communist Party worked under, at that time, this particular Jatha worked under Godavari Bai Parolekar. Now, Godavari Parolekar was a communist activist who had helped to organize the Warli tribals in the Gadchiroli Thane belt of Maharashtra in the British times. She had been arrested, she was in jail. When, with independence, she was released from jail, told that she will not visit Thane district. So one time she went to Thane district, and since the police were behind her, she slipped into the Portuguese occupied areas and saw that the condition of the tribals there was still worse. Therefore, she decided she will work with the tribals, and she started organizing the Warli tribals and the Konkona tribals and making them into a fighting force to liberate Dadra and Nagar Haveli. Now, these are the three groups which are part of the dramatic personae of this particular struggle. Now, we'll go back to the original group in Pune, the RSS Swayamsevaks, Swayamsevaks. They have taken a call that they want to liberate their motherland by taking up arms. But where are the resources for this? There is no money. How do they get the money for buying arms and ammunition? So they tried raising money from their own private resources, their friends, their relatives. It was not going to work out because obviously there was nobody who was so financially strong that they would be able to finance a war or a revolution. They tried going to some social service organizations, of which some were specifically made for the liberation of territories from Portuguese occupation. But even those organizations refused to give them funds because they were not in favor of taking up arms. As a last resort, one of them, Sudhir Phadke, who was then a music director in Marathi movies, and he had just started his career, went on to be very, very famous. He was awarded the Padma Shri, decided that they would seek help from Lata Mangeshkar ji. She had been so emotionally attached, become so emotionally attached to the idea. Now, what is the reason for that? The reason was that the Mangeshkar family derives its name from the Mangeshi temple in their own basic village. And this temple was under the control of the Portuguese. And the Portuguese were inhibiting people from going in, coming out, worshipping, etc. Therefore, she was very emotionally attached to that. So she said, कि अगर मैं आपकी मदद करती हूँ, तो वो मेरी मदद मेरे मंगेश की सेवा करने जैसा है, इसलिए आप बताइए आपको क्या चाहिए, मैं आपकी मदद करने को तैयार हूँ. She agreed to help them. Now they asked for money. So Lataji told them that this was something which was not feasible. She could not give them money directly because as per Indian regulations, that would be an illegal act. It would amount to financing a revolution in a foreign country, which the government does not want to do. But she suggested that they organize a concert in Pune. And she said she would hand over the proceeds of the concert to them for buying arms and financing their uprising. She then sent them to Muhammad Rafi. She said, Rafi bhai ko bhi bol do, wo bhi aa jayenge. And also to C. Ramchandra, who was a music director, as you know. And all of them participated in the concert. Okay, you have the money. You just don't go to the market and buy arms and ammunition. From where do you get arms from? So there were only two sources at that time. One was Goa itself, where there was a huge black market in arms. However, there was a risk involved in it, which is that you had to cross an international border, the Portugal-India border. You had to cross that and come into India, which was very risky. And if they had been caught, they would have been shot dead. So they decided to go to Hyderabad. The Nizam purchased a huge cache of arms and ammunition from Switzerland, and they were fully armed. However, when the Indian army under General Chaudhary moved into Hyderabad, it took just 2 days to demolish the Hyderabadi army. And the Razakars, not their fault, they were not soldiers. They were just village boys wearing a uniform and carrying an arm. So they disbanded and ran away into their villages. Now, most of the arms and ammunition were captured by the Indian army. However, some were taken back to the villages and stored there and subsequently sold in the black market. So this is the reason why there were arms and ammunition in Hyderabad, which could be bought. So they went to Hyderabad and they had to make at least 4 or 5 trips between Hyderabad and Pune to gather the arms, because the first time they went, they purchased some bullets. And when they were purchasing the bullets and bringing them back, they got caught by the police. So they made multiple trips, and every time they dismantled the arms and got them in pieces from different directions. And when they got bullets, they would actually call the children of the family as if they had come to receive their elders, and they would give them bullets which the children would stuff into their college uniform pockets and smuggle them out into the city, and from there they would be gathered. But such a major exercise was done. At the end of this exercise, they had a grand total of 5 rifles and 3 pistols. And with 5 rifles and 3 pistols, they set out to beat 375 fully armed Portuguese soldiers who had 10 guns, Bren guns, and even 3 submachine guns. Now, that was the task at hand. So imagine how big that task was. Anyway, so we have these arms and ammunition. They know that we have 5 rifles and 3 pistols. They know that at best, along with the Azad Gomantak Dal, which had by now joined them, we would be 20 plus. So for 20 plus to take a battle against more than 300 fully armed soldiers, they would need to have some kind of force multiplier. So what was that? So Baba Saheb Purandare, who was at that, even then, very much involved in with the history of Maharashtra and Shivaji, suggested, "Apan ganimi kavyacha vapar karuya." Ganimi Kawa is a term coined during the time of Shivaji Maharaj, which actually means guerrilla warfare, which means you use stealth, you use deception, you use surprise, you use knowledge of local terrain, you use local networks, and use all them to multiply your force so that you are able to attach a much higher force and beat them. So this meant that they needed to have knowledge of local conditions. Which police station to attack, how many policemen would be there, what would be the arms and ammunition with them at that point of time, what roads could be cut off so that reinforcement from Silvassa would not arrive. Silvassa was the capital. What are the communication lines to be cut? They decided to explore all this. Therefore, Rajabhau Wakankar, who was the chief of this Pune group, the leader of the Pune group, went in disguised as a bangle seller. And he went from village to village, specifically selling his bangles at times when he knew that women would not come out and buy them, in order to be able to survey the area. He surveyed. Much to his misfortune, one of the days, there was a very senior lady sitting outside who called him and said, "Ki ab ye chudiya meri bahuon ko pehnao." Now this man was so scared that he tried to do that, the entire bangle thing fell down and he was caught. They said, "Tu bangle seller nahi hai. Nahi to औरत का हाथ पकड़ के bangle चढ़ाने में तू इतना घबराएगा नहीं. तू कौन है बता, नहीं तो we'll call people." So he ran from there. Now the chance was he had got some information. He needed more. So two people went in as agarbatti sellers, because there was a Pune company which sold agarbattis in Dadra and Nagar Haveli. So they went to them. This time they came with complete details. They had the bill books, they had the ID cards kind of things, they had samples, they had the addresses of the people who bought from them, and they entered and surveyed the whole area. They again made some maps. Now with these two excursions into Nagar Haveli, they had a map of Dadra and Nagar Haveli in generic terms as to where police stations were, where what was located, where there were rivers, where there were bridges, etc., etc. But they had no knowledge of what the Silvassa police post looked like, because that is where the central power was actually where it actually existed, where the administrator, Captain Fidaldo, sat along with his police chief, Lieutenant Furtado, and there was Pedado, who was the judge. Now these people were there with all the major strength of their soldiers. So they didn't have any knowledge of what to do there. So Lalitabai Phadke, who was Sudhir Phadke's wife, incidentally he was the only one in the group who was then married. She dressed as a student. She got her hair cut, wore a skirt, and went in with a camera and took pictures all over Dadra and Nagar Haveli, including in the Silvassa main square. And in the Silvassa main square, she took pictures of the police post. A policeman noticed and rushed to her, saying, "Andar chalo, dikhao camera mein, kis cheez ki photo khich rahe ho?" She knew that if she went into the police station, she was as good as dead, or definitely captured and jailed, and the mission completely sabotaged. So she threw the camera on the road and started shouting at the top of her voice that the policeman was molesting her. Seeing ke akeli ladki dekh ke tum mujhe tang kar rahe ho. The policeman got scared and said, "Bhai, tu apna camera utha aur yahan se ja ma. Don't say anything to me." So she picked up the camera and ran from the area. When she came back, the pictures were developed. They had a complete picture of what the Silvassa police post looked like. Still, they didn't know what it was like from inside. So they sent 3 people, 2 to beg at the square and 1 to be a backup. Now begging was prohibited in Portuguese occupied territories. So these people begged in the town square of Silvassa. One day they were chased away, second day they were beaten up, third day they were arrested. When they were arrested, they made maps of what the entire police post looked from inside. They organized a music concert there and invited all the all the important prominent citizens of Dadra and Nagar Haveli there. And after the concert, some of them were taken aside and told about the plan without revealing the details, and asked for cooperation, to which some people agreed. Now the whole system was in place. They had intelligence, they had arms, they had some money, they had 20-25 volunteers, and they had local support. So then they decided to attack Nagar Haveli. Now, why did they choose Dadra Nagar Haveli out of Goa, Daman Diu? The reason was that Goa, Daman Diu were all approachable by sea. So reinforcement could be rushed from one to the other. So they thought that they will take the landlocked area first, and then taking arms and ammunition and money from here, attack Daman, then attack Diu, then take the ships and attack Goa. That was the whole grand plan. It got limited to Nagar Haveli and Dadra at one point of time, but that's a separate part of the story. We'll come to that later. But anyways, so they decided to attack. When they reached the border, they found that the border was sealed by the Special Reserve Police of the Maharashtra government from all sides. The border was sealed because, as Nehruji had announced in Parliament, that no Indian would participate in these activities. To prevent Indian people from going in or prevent people from there from going out, Morarji Desai, who was then the Chief Minister of the Dvibhashik state, Gujarat and Maharashtra was one state at that point of time. The chief minister of the Dvibhashik state had positioned his army on all sides and they would not let these people enter. So they found that entering was ruled out. One event happened in this time which changed this equation, which is that Dadra was liberated by the communists. Now the communists, there was a group in Goa which was called United Goans. They were left aligned, they were first aligned with Ram Manohar Lohia ji, and then they got aligned with Godavari Bai Parolikar. Now these people decided that they would also attack and liberate Dadra and Nagar Haveli first and then go on to the other areas. So these people surprisingly were provided aid by the Indian government. They were given a railway wagon to be transported from there to the border and they were allowed to enter the border because there they did not violate the dictum of Pandit Nehru that it did not have to be Indians. They were Goans trying to liberate Goa. Therefore they were permitted inside. They liberated Dadra. And they liberated Dadra on the very same day on which this group was also planning to attack the police post. Now there was a gentleman called Nana Kazrekar who was positioned there. He was positioned as a Mali. And he used to go and play rummy with the people in the police post. And he had become so friendly that he was allowed access to the police post at all time. So they had actually organized their entire network and they had planned to attack the police post. But just the day they were supposed to come in, surprisingly the Goans came in and they liberated and these people had to withdraw. Now this caused a lot of concern in Mumbai because Morarji Desai was quite antipathic to the communists. You can say he was very strongly anti-communist. He feared that if the communists liberated Dadra and Nagar Haveli, a situation similar to Telangana would take place, where the communists who were working against the Nizam and then subsequently working with the Nizam also had escaped with arms and ammunition into the jungle and they had virtually set up a quasi-country there and they were not subject to control by anyone. He thought if the communists liberated Dadra and Nagar Haveli, in that case I will have a communist enclave in the middle of my state and I would not be able to do anything about it. Even if they declared independence, I would not be able to send forces there to take that country back. So then he called the leaders of this group and told them, "Ab aap jaake jo marzi kijiye, we'll let you in." However, he warned them that our support to you is limited to letting you enter the borders of Dadra and Nagar Haveli. If inside you die, we will not even come to retrieve your dead bodies because we will not be allowed to do that. At your risk, you can go. So they decided to go. Another condition put was that they will not operate under the banner of the RSS Swayamsevaks. This was specifically there because post the assassination of Gandhiji, there was a ban on the RSS Swayamsevaks. And there was, within the Congress of which Morarji was a part, there was a strong anti-RSS sentiment. Therefore, they said that you will have to go in your individual capacities. To which the Swayamsevaks agreed because they said that the cause is more important rather than who gets credit. This is something we must do it. So they agreed to go under the banner of the Azad Gomantak Dal. So the whole battle was fought as if they were Azad Gomantak Dal volunteers, but there were two groups. There was the Dal and there was the RSS Swayamsevaks. Two groups had got together.